Hey there, my fellow lunatics. Dakon the Mad here, and today we've got part 2 of our mob spawning video series. Today we're going to look over what you can do to create a little bit more of an advanced mob farm, especially once you've already gotten past the Great Wall and you have access to the Desert of Beginnings, Azios' Wilderness, and the Sunken Sea. So the first thing that you'll notice here in my farm is that I have expanded the amount of spawn tiles that I have within each spawn cell. So instead of just the 4 basic ones from my last video, I've got pretty much every single spawn tile type currently in the farm. That's 11 different types. There are technically 12, but again, you'll notice that the stone moss is not here. Again, that's going to be a separate video. Now, while I haven't done it in this mob farm, it is a good idea to have a couple of different rows of chrysalis and a couple of extra rows of fungal soil within each spawn cell. Since you've got some extra room in the spawn cell right now, you've basically got 5 unused tiles in the spawn cell, you can easily add an extra 2 rows of each chrysalis and fungal soil. This will improve your odds significantly of getting shroom men and of getting large larvae. The large larvae are also really nice to get because they will break the mushrooms that can spawn from the fungal soil for you so that you don't have to come in and collect them. In the last video, the mushrooms weren't that big of a deal because the spike traps would break them, but in this farm, we are replacing the spike traps with conveyor belts, and those mushrooms will just sit on top of the conveyor belts doing nothing and taking up spawn space. So the first thing you're going to want to do is expand your farm so that it includes all of the potential spawn tiles within each spawn cell. Once that's done, you want to replace all of your spike traps with conveyor belts, and you want the conveyor belts to go down into what's going to become your kill zone. Now, I have done mine down at the bottom here, but you can do yours anywhere. You can even have multiple kill zones if you want to spread out the load a little bit. That's entirely doable. You want the kill zone to be in its own, ultimately in its own spawn cell, because if the mobs start to build up within the kill zone, then they will affect the maximum amount of mobs you can have per spawn cell, and this will have a negative impact on your spawn. So we've moved the kill zone down, and you can see here that it's not quite completely outside of the spawn zone, but with the conveyor belts that are going to be in place down here, it'll move very quickly further south outside of this spawn cell and into its own. Let's take a look at the kill zone here and what exactly makes it special or unique. There are multiple designs that you can have for kill zones, and you're ultimately going to use one of 3 or even a combination of these 3 things. You want the mobs to kill each other, you want turrets to do damage and weaken the mobs, and you want the spikes with some purple slime on top of them to weaken the mob's healing abilities and ultimately kill the mob. Inside the main spawn cell areas, we have all of the mobs just intermingling with each other. And because they all are intermingling with each other up here, they're going to kill each other. And the survivors are essentially going to get funneled down into the bottom and into this kill box. Here, they're going to get attacked by turrets. And what I'm doing here is I'm using the mold ground, and I have used my scarlet hoe here to till the ground so that it will not spawn any mobs. You don't want mobs spawning here in the kill zone. So even though I've got the mold ground down, it's not going to create any of its own mobs. The reason I'm using mold ground is it slows the creatures. Even with the conveyor belts on top, all of your mobs will get slowed in this area. So that keeps them in this hot box a little bit longer, allows them to take some more damage. But they will ultimately get funneled down through this entire kill zone where they're just steadily taking damage until they reach the bottom. And here at the bottom, we have 2 Galaxite traps with, let me pop them off here, with purple slime tiles underneath. I just popped those purple slimes off. So we want the poison slime ground, and then we put those Galaxite traps down there, and then the mobs get stuck here at the bottom in what is essentially the final kill zone. This is where they're getting blasted by turrets, and they're getting blasted by these 2 spike traps. The mobs will die on one of these 2 spike traps, making it possible for you to easily come up through these 2 doors and harvest the loot. And look, we've got a couple mobs that have been funneled down already. Now, I don't have all of my conveyor belts to push them through right now, but you can get a glimpse of what it's like as they just sit here getting blasted. Many of them will get killed within this area, and their loot will just be funneled down again to the final kill zone. You'll notice that this Galaxite trap here took some damage and got broken up. If you're not in here to aggro the monsters, then they will not do nearly as much damage to the Galaxite traps and to the turrets. So this turret has been damaged, and I'm gonna have to fix that. In fact, actually, there's the reason why I have a door down here at the bottom is for easy entranceway to repair any damage, because I noticed that the turrets that are most likely to take damage in this design are the ones down here at the bottom. And because my AFK room is this little throne, so sometimes the assassins will shoot at these traps because I'm a little close. It's probably not a bad idea to move your AFK room a little further away so that you don't actually aggro any of the mobs here. If you don't aggro them, they're not going to damage the turrets. They're not going to be able to damage anything, and they will just come over here and die. And as you can see, real easy to collect the loot. You don't even need magnetic rings. You just step up here and you get your loot. One thing that's important to note when it comes to these more advanced mob farms is you need to have a little bit of an understanding of tile stacking and what does and does not block spawning from these tiles. Zero Gravitas made a really cool chart that goes over the details of exactly what does and does not block spawn, and I think it's really, really easy to read myself. You can see in the chart that the spawn tiles are at the bottom, which tells you that anything that is above them in the stacking order that is highlighted in red will prevent the spawn from occurring. So you'll notice a little higher up, you've got the slimes there. And if you place down the rug or the woven mat, or if you place down a torch on top of that purple slime tile, it'll prevent spawning. It'll also prevent the effect. So for example, the poison slime prevents healing, the slippery slime causes you to move quickly, and the lava slime does a damage over time. None of these things will happen if there is an object on top of the slime that prevents spawn. Now, the one exception to this is conveyor belts. Conveyor belts, even though they do not block spawn, they do block the status effects. So if you put that conveyor belt over the slippery slime or the poison slime, it will no longer trigger that effect with the conveyor belt. However, spikes don't do that. So that is why these Galaxite traps here at the bottom have poison slime on top of them, so that when the mobs walk over it, they get that healing debuff status effect. And then they can't heal as easily since they're not aggroed in combat. They're going to heal every few seconds. And some of these in hard, especially in hard mode, but some of these higher level mobs do not go down so easily. And having that purple slime status effect on them is very helpful in getting them down at the very end there. So that's really important. Some people might think maybe the acid slime is worth doing because it does its own damage over time effect, but acid slime's damage over time is extremely weak, and the molten slime's damage over time, while much better, is not enough. You really need to use the healing debuff of the purple slime in order to make sure that every single mob dies while they are sitting here in the kill zone. If you need to look at these charts anywhere else, they are in a Steam community link, which I will share in the description below. You can check that out at any time to get a very detailed description of exactly how mob spawning works, as well as check out all of these really helpful charts that Zero Gravitas made. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to build a more advanced intermediate level mob farm. Be sure to check out the upcoming build video where I actually put this farm together so that you can see just exactly how I get these turrets working and how I do the wiring for it, because you definitely want to do some things to protect your wiring in case a turret gets destroyed, so that everything doesn't go offline. You need a little redundancy. So be sure to check out the build video where I go into those details. And if you have any questions or you think I left out anything important, please leave a comment below. I hope you liked this video. If so, please hit that thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more awesome Corekeeper content. Until next time, stay crazy.